My name is Niels Harrit, as already has been announced, and I am retired associate professor at the University of Copenhagen. Has been working there for 45 years. Retired, still have my office and a little research left. And in 2006, I saw what I'm going to show you in 10 seconds, because I would like to start my presentation by making a little poll. Showing you this.
Building 7.
Question is, how many of you have no idea what that was? How many of you have never seen this before? Good. Meaning what I had anticipated, that we all have realized that the official story of the 19 hijackers who got on 4 airliners without any tickets, without any boarding passes, after they had outfoxed not only the FBI and the CIA, but a total of 16 American intelligence agencies, the whole global intelligence community, including Mossad, and they got on these planes, no boarding passes, leaving no pictures on the, what you call them, CCTVs, which were abundant also at that time. And once on board these 4 airliners, they overcome 8 pilots, which were mature adult men. 4 of them had been fighter pilots in Vietnam, and overtook these planes without any of these 8 pilots taking out 50 milliseconds to squawk the hijack code. It's just to punch 7700 on the keypad, which is the hijack code, which they were supposed to be if they had any suspicion that these planes were hijacked. And 2 of them, they flew into World Trade Center towers, even though some of them had never been in a cockpit of a 767 before. And to doing that, even for a trained pilot, is like threading a needle on a horseback. One of them even managed, before hitting the North Tower, he told his co-pilot, "Hey brother, can you tow the wheel for a second?" And then he pulled off his passport from his jacket, rolled down the window, and flew down the window, closed it again, and committed suicide at 950 kilometers per hour. And two of the other planes flew around for 1.5 hours, while the American Air Force remained on the ground for some strange reason for the first time ever, actually, and for the 68th time that year, because according to procedure, they were supposed to scramble immediately fighter jets in the air. And they were all promoted. All these people responsible for the greatest failure in the history of the American Air Force were all promoted afterwards. And may I remind you about a young German student called Matthias Rust, who in 1994 flew a 1-engine Cessna plane from West Germany all across Russia, landed on the Red Square, and what happened? Within 24 hours, the whole head of the Russian air defense were fired, including the minister, of course. This is what happened in Russia, but in the United States, they were all promoted. This all of you know. So what I'm going to show today is I will assume that you know all this. That we know that the official story of 9/11 is a fake. So what I will offer the next 20 minutes is some bits of information of which you will not be familiar, I hope, from the campaign trail, from the fight for 9/11 truth, and maybe some views which are personal. First of all, the fact is that we are a minority. Down here on the ground floor, there is a meeting, as I understand from Noel, is about how to earn money. and I went by the auditorium just before, it's overcrowded. So we are a minority up here. It's still controversial to actually to question the official story. And what is that? Well, one thing that you probably have realized is that the media is completely controlled, that the people who determine what we are supposed to know, they have determined that we are not supposed to know about, for instance, Building 7. Very few people actually still have never seen what you just saw. And so I'll not dwell on that. More, this is one of the, of course, obvious, most important mechanism, obstacle for promoting the 9/11 truth. But what I like to call the power of the tribe, I think, is equally important because it works on a personal level. The tribe is the most important social unit. It overrules the family. And this is basic Darwin, because in the old times, if you were not complicit, if you did not stick within the tribe, it was literally a death sentence to be thrown out of the village at least at the time when the Vikings were running around in England. It would be fatal to be thrown out of the village. So if you did not have the gene sticking to the tribe and the rules of the tribe, you were lost. Even though the Nottingham Forest, you could survive, but it was not a pleasant existence. So, and to belong to the tribe meaning to also, there's a control of the mind. You are not allowed to think outside of the paradigm. And to think about 9/11 as a false flag operation is thinking out of the paradigm. So it will be punished. And we have all known, if you are a truther, like I call myself, you know that you're losing friends in this, you may lose your job, marriages actually are breaking off. And that is and also in the Middle Ages, once in a while they had to burn a witch. I have wondered why this usually was a woman, but maybe others can elaborate on that. But once in a while you have to burn a witch, and after the next section we'll hear about the attorney, the lawyer of Julian Assange. We've all heard about Bradley Manning, so we know that witch burning is also going on these days. On a personal level, I think it's more important even that people do not want to hear about this. And I believe that this is connected to the pain of realizing that you have been betrayed by the very person who is supposed to take care of you, namely our leaders, sometimes even elected in a democratic process. But the feeling that you have been not only failed, but directly assaulted by the very same people who should take care of you is painful. It's downright painful. You don't want to hear about it. And it's a subject which is very much up in the public these days. And how does a child react to the greatest level of in Danish it would call care failure? Not with anger, but with shame and depression and what you say when you don't move. Paralysis. Yeah, and this is the state of our society now. Actually, we have been betrayed. Everybody knows. So, but we don't want to hear about it. We go into depression instead of it. And then I have a point 4, which I'll reserve for my closing remarks. Now, I'll just use my little time slot here to mention 3 vehicles for the promotion of 9/11 truth. And the first is very real. It's a project called the 9/11 Consensus Points Project. And it is something which has been established by David Ray Griffin and Elizabeth Woodworth and William Veal, an attorney in the United States. And the procedure, the point is the construction is that there is a panel of experts. Currently, we are 19 on this panel who are being reviewing or evaluating what we call points. And each point consists of the official claim and then following the best evidence which is actually available and the conclusion. It takes an awful lot of time to evaluate each point because they are reviewed by each expert and they're blind to each other. And we keep on repeating the process, refining the text until everybody agrees on more than 88% agrees. And at present, there are 29 of these points, and the purpose being that this should be a reference site or a reference documentation, something which can be used to throw into the face of any doubter saying, this is solid evidence, this is something we believe. And as of September 2001, as I said, there were 29 points. I'll just show you some web statistics for September, which means that I have to really go into this here. This is an email I got from Elizabeth Woodworth the other day, and it shows you, just as an example, that this is not a news site, so the traffic fluctuates a lot, depending on if any new points are coming up. But we had 3 new points actually in the end of August, meaning that the traffic is going up tremendously in September, and then it goes down again. But I hope that you'll use this site as, as a footnote. The points which was published here in the end of August is dealing with Muhammad Atta's. According to the official story, Muhammad Atta went to Portland and then took a connecting flight back on the morning of 6 o'clock on September 11th. And this turns out to be a ridiculous lie. I will encourage you to go to the site and read the last 3 points, but it's really entertaining how they completely messed up the whole story. And maybe some of you who are really into this wondered if there's 1 or 2 cars that Muhammad Atta used, because there also was a white Mitsubishi which he was supposed to dump on the parking lot of Logan Airport in Boston. And then they changed the story, but the point is that there are 2 stories. There were 2 stories. They messed everything up, and it's real funny reading. So please go ahead and check it out. As roughly, how many visitors here in September did the traffic? Okay. So, and the other thing which I want to point your attention to is a DVD which came out of the organization called Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. No, I went too far. Okay. No. So what I'm going to do now is to zoom in on one of these points. It's called TT2 because it's about the Twin Towers, and it's claim number 2 about the destruction of the Twin Towers, impact, fire, and gravity only. That is, the official story claims that the towers came down due to gravity. And this has been reported by the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. But maybe you believe that there is an official account of the collapse of the towers. Well, there is a report of 14,000 pages. But what I want to tell some of you who doesn't know is that they do not cover the collapse itself. I want to point your direction to one of the most important footnote in modern history, and also a source, I think, of great humor, because it occurs in chapter 6 of the official NIST report. And this chapter is called The Probable Collapse Sequence of the Twin Towers. This is a report from 2005. We're not talking about Building 7, we're talking about the Twin Towers. So, and you start reading chapter 6, expecting now to get an account of how the towers collapsed. Until you reach page 82 and go down to footnote number 13, and I quote, "The focus of the investigation was on the sequence of events from the instant of aircraft impact to the initiation of collapse for each tower. For brevity, in this report, this sequence is referred to as the probable collapse sequence, although it does not actually include the structural behavior of the tower after the conditions for collapse initiation were reached and collapse became inevitable." If you have any sense of how you can actually cover things up by using elaborate academic language, this is brilliant, isn't it? Because what they write here, this is from the scientists of NIST to the scientists of the world. They're saying, "We know this is rubbish, but we got bills to pay, okay?" And in particular, I love the expression "for brevity." This is straight out of Winnie the Pooh, isn't it? So, and another thing about another aspect, what I'm providing today is more gems actually from my personal experience, which you just haven't heard or realized before. And here is something from the Danish front. Because another aspect of this claim about the destruction of the Twin Towers is that this steel frame structure came down due to fire and gravity only. And as you're probably all aware of, is that this is without precedent. It has never happened before or after in history that a steel frame high-riser has come down due to fire. Now take a look at what the Danish Prime Minister said in a Danish TV program. It was called 24 Hours I Never Forget. And he was asked, here's a Rasmussen, we have had 3 Rasmussens in a row, so don't get confused, here's the good one. And he was asked actually what was his experience on what was late afternoon in Denmark at that time. And there should be English subtitles on this.
På samme tid træder daværende statsminister Poul Nyrup Rasmussen ind i statsministeriet for at holde et sikkerhedsrådsmøde.
Nogenlunde i det øjeblik, jeg træder ind i statsministeriet, får jeg at vide, at det første tårn er nu helt kollapset. Jeg får en melding, jeg tror 5-10 minutter før det fysisk sker, at nu er der overhængende risiko for, at tårnene kollapser. Så jeg vidste, at katastrofen var på vej, og får det så endelig bekræftet i det øjeblik, jeg træder ind, tror jeg, i huset.
What's happening here? If we are talking about an event which has never happened before in history, it means that the thought is unthinkable. If it has never rained, you cannot foresee rain. If it has never snowed, there's no way you can imagine what snow is. At that point in history, nobody could anticipate that a steel frame high-riser would collapse due to fire. And the most experienced structural engineer in the world would be the one to say, it will remain standing. And still, our Prime Minister, 10 minutes prior to collapse, is being told that in 10 minutes he'll see the tower collapsing. What's happening? Well, what is happening is that when he sees it, he'll see what he is supposed to see. He will see the tower collapsing due to the impact of the airliner. And of course the point is here, who's telling him this? I submitted a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, to the State Ministry years ago. This is an old story. Asking to see any document which has come from American authorities, spoken messages, anything from American authorities to his office on that day. And I got the answer, there was no such evidence. I haven't had time to follow up on that, which obviously you could do. But the point is, there's only one player left here, and this is the intelligence service. So, somebody is telling our Prime Minister what to see. Denmark is a small country. It's about 1/3 of London City. So, we must imagine that all Prime Ministers actually in the world were told what to see, so they would see not what they saw, but what they were told to see. This is a bent of general nature. This is proof, ladies and gentlemen, that 9/11 was an inside job. I have actually, Denmark is so small, I wrote to him before we published this. It was my wife, Pernille, who discovered this clip. Before we published it, I wrote to him and said, hey, let's have a cup of coffee. He was living quite close to where I was living. He didn't respond to that. Later we contacted him again, and his secretary responded and said he was not interested. And there actually is a Danish documentary where the secretary is confronted for the third time, and he's claiming that obviously he's making a mistake. The sad story here is that he's a good guy, actually. After he lost the elections to Anders Fogh Rasmussen, he spent the last 10 years as chairman of the European Democrats, Social Democrats, trying to fight the hedge funds, and as we all know, he lost. Now, if he had not been briefed, what would he have seen? He would have seen the towers being blown up, and I'll just entertain you with a few minutes of David Chandler's video, which tells everything actually in terms of explosions. There's
starting point in science, obviously,
I'll crank this up.
what you are seeing here is what happened in the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Second of 3 buildings to collapse on 9/11, 2001. I use the word collapse, but words can...
I only have 5 minutes left, I just told. So what I will... this is about the film, the truth documentary, The Experts Speak Out, produced by the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. It has been on the public broadcasting system in the United States. It was for a week the most used and the most shared video. It's highly successful. It will come out very soon with subtitles in Spanish, German, French, Italian, Dutch, Swedish, Arabic, Bahasa, I don't know what it is, Hungarian, Portuguese, Turkish, Serbian, Japanese, Polish, Czech, Danish, and Romanian. There are people all over the world who has been sweating over this in all countries global. It gives me a lump in the throat to thinking of this. All these people who are working out the subtitles on this documentary, and it will come out soon here in December. The Russians and the Chinese didn't make it. Now, I'll close with a case story from Denmark, which maybe it's a slip also, very much like our Danish Prime Minister. Because some time ago, the Danish radio is very much like BBC. There is a board, and there is ethical codes. There is what we call an ombudsman, that is a person to which you can submit your complaints, etc., etc. It happened a year ago that then in advance publicity for a program, they wrote routinely, as we all know, that the United States was attacked by Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden on September 11th. And my wife and sister warrior in the 9/11 Truth, she wrote, this is something we do routinely, follow up small tracks. She wrote to the Danish radio and said, how do you know that? How do you know this is true? She sent it, how do you know that? And very fast, actually, the response came back saying, we don't. Already at that time, you could hear the track snap. And believe me, so we just wetted our lips and said, aha. Because they said, it is not our duty to have any proofs, evidence for the truth of what we are telling. It's the Americans, we trust the Americans for having the evidence for the official story is correct, and we just promote or bring the official statements. Aha. So we filed actually a complaint to our ombudsman, or it's called the Listeners and Viewers editor, and asking, can this really be true? That the national radio is telling the story without having any evidence. It took him 2 months to respond, which is a very long time. It was a long letter, it was full with error, but the essence of his response was, it is unfair to criticize Danish radio for bringing official statements. He did not say that the official story was correct. So we had to go back again. Actually, then we wrote a letter to, it's a long story, there's a lot of paperwork, and each time we are sticking to the rules, and it's getting bigger and bigger. We complained to the general manager. This is the woman and head of the whole organization. I think there are 10,000, I don't know, 15,000 employees. Extensive documentations. She simply refused to take our complaint. And then the next step was to go to the board, to the chairman of the board. And the point here is, for once, we have a legislation in Denmark, according to which the media must strive for the highest quality in their news coverage. It's not in the law that they're forbidden to tell lies. It's not anywhere, but they are committed to strive for the highest quality. So the question is if the truth is quality. And that's the whole point of the thing. So there is a law, and another thing is that we have a public service contract, actually, which the chairman of the board has signed personally, committing the institution to fulfilling the law. That's one thing, and a whole set of quality in the public broadcasting system. So we could actually go, excuse me, for the throat of this man because he had signed the public contract. And in our opinion, obviously, they're breaking it when they're not doing their best, which they had admitted they do. So, the board, he again refused to answer, claiming that we have no legal right to complain. This is what happens every time you go to the Danish radio. You get an answer from a lawyer telling you don't have right to complain. Of course, if they're breaking the law, ultimately we will take them into court. I'll show you about this. And then some strange thing happened because the head of the legal department started sending us letters. Again, you have no right to complain. But he again admitted that you cannot blame the Danish radio for bringing official statements. So from 3 authorities within the institution, they have admitted that they are just bringing official statements without any evidence. This is what we have in written. So the present state of this case is that we have filed a 60 pages complaint to the Ministry of Culture, and we are waiting for a response. They are in deep trouble. They have told us that they are working on a response, and the point here is we are working within a 2-dimensional level of decency. Because everybody knows that everybody knows that everybody knows, but we are all pretending that we are sticking to the rules. And you can actually get a long way, ultimately, to take the chairman of the board to court, which we will when we have got the response from the Ministry of Culture, eventually going to the top there as well. Our strategy and what we are doing here is the key point in our work is the CC and the BCC parts of the email. Because in the CC we put the names of people, and Denmark is so small, we know them all, and this is the top of the whole media world. On the CC list we put people who we want to know that the others know. In this case it's about 50 people. Who knows that they know, that we know, that they know, that we know, that they know, that we know, that they know. And on the BCC list, those are the people who we like and cannot see each other. At present, there are about 2,000 names. So we are just stirring the anthill each time and waiting, not too hurry, because we want to let the stew simmer and just work for itself, taking it from the bottom up. Now, if I have 2 minutes, just to the impact of the omnipresent lie, I think that the civilization is in the balance, and we all know here. And there's something, the omnipresent fear is a consequence of the omnipresent state of lying. I think that the very thing that everybody is lying, it's accepted also in Denmark, the people are standing up there, they're lying, everybody knows they're lying, but it's okay. This is dangerous, it's a downright threat to our culture. And one thing is that in the editorial offices around the world, or at least in Western civilizations, there have been new pets in the room which are causing serious logistical problems for the technical staff. And another thing is that language is deteriorating, meaning that actually it's breaking down. It's very much like what you say, the cultural state of affairs in DDR, the old Soviet Union, where you were not allowed to talk with the people next in the bus. Why is it still controversial to talk about this? The point 4 is, I don't care. This is what you hear. You may be right, Niels, but I don't care. Very soon, everybody will have to care. Because we all know that due to the financial situation, which is a spin-off of 9/11, because of the financial situation, everything's going to break down very soon. So all these people who do not care, they will have to care. There will come a tsunami of social change by such a magnitude that what I believe what happened in the 30s before I was born will be a summer camp in comparison. And so where do we stand? Have we reached critical mass actually for riding high on this tsunami? And I believe yes, due to the work of probably many of you here in the room and everybody else who's working for peace and honesty in society. So the social change will come with great force. And our job as truth tellers will be to surf high on this and to make sure that it is actually bringing the society in the right direction and changing the paradigm. And so that's all we can do. Hold on, tell the truth, and stay on top of it. Thank you.